What is up guys, Andy Forest Runner here, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Hoka One One RINCON against the Asics NOVABLAST. In previous NOVABLAST comparison videos, a lot of you guys have commented asking for me to compare against the Hoka One One RINCON, and to be perfectly honest with you, this was my shoe of 2019 and so far this is my shoe of 2020. So it's a great matchup today. Today we're going to be going through the pros and the cons of both of these shoes, which ones I prefer over certain distances, which ones I prefer overall, and all of that good stuff. So if you're excited for today's video guys, make sure you give it a like, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel for weekly running content, and we'll start with the Rincon. Just before we dive into today's comparison video, just a quick heads up. This is not going to be a technical overview. This is going to be a head-to-head comparison between the two shoes and which one I prefer, the pros and the cons. If you're looking for technical specifications on both of these shoes, you can search up on the YouTube channel FOD Runner, Asics NOVABLAST First Impressions, or FOD Runner, Hoka One One RINCON First Impressions. Both of the first impression videos has the full technical specifications that I've gone through in those videos. But there's a couple of things that I want to go through very quickly now just to set the tone, because there is a big difference in these shoes despite them being relatively similar. That's weight and that's the drop of the shoe. And then we'll talk about the pros and the cons of construction. So this is a 5mm heel to toe drop shoe, and this one weighs in, I can't remember what it is in grams, but it's 9.8 ounces. It's quite light, 278, 280 grams. So that's a massive difference compared to the NOVABLAST, which we will talk about very shortly. So this, for me, in a UK size 13, any shoe that I can get in under 10 ounces is absolutely like gold dust. And this thing, when I grabbed it in the first instance and started running in it, it was like a breath of fresh air. It was like a racing shoe minus the carbon plate. And for those of you guys who are relatively new to the channel, again, I set a few PRs in this shoe and absolutely loved this thing in 2019. Ran 16:58 for the 5K in this shoe, and at the time ran a half marathon PR of 1:20:31, I think it was, in this shoe. And I picked this thing for everything from easy runs, long runs, speed workouts. It literally mirrors exactly what I'm doing in 2020 for the NOVABLAST. And don't get me wrong, I am super excited for version 2, but there is a massive con to this shoe, as I'm sure a lot of you guys know, which we'll cover very, very shortly. What did I enjoy about the shoe? Well, somehow in this very lightweight package, they managed to make a beautiful plush heel counter area, which was super, super comfy. It was not stripped back in any way, shape or form, which meant the ride on this thing was fantastic. I got on like a house on fire with the EVA midsole, and the upper is so, so breathable. It's just, it's everything you want in a lightweight daily tempo trainer. And I've got to be honest with you, for all the lightweight shoes that I've tried to find since, like the New Balance Tempo, like the Kinvara 11 that I tried, nothing has come close to this lightweight model. The main downside to this shoe, sadly, is the durability, the longevity, the lifespan of this thing is terrible. For me, the midsole started flattening out around about 180 miles, and around about 220 miles I got to this thing, I started getting severe shin pains when running in this shoe. I noticed the midsole had completely gone solid like a brick, a little bit like the React Miler like I'm running in now. And it was really sad because I had to retire the shoe early and I couldn't put any more miles in there. I know a lot of you guys out there felt exactly the same way and struggled with the Rincon in that exact same reason, which is such a shame because this shoe has so much promise. But I've got to be honest with you, those 220 miles, wow, those 180 miles were absolute bliss in this shoe, and I cannot wait for version 2. So overall, main pros: lightweight, beautiful stack height. That 5mm stack height does not feel like 5mm. because of the meta rocker that they have in this shoe. It just feels, again, like you're stepping off the edge of a curb. It's what makes you want to move fast. My cadence is good in this shoe. Lightweight, stack height, breathability, comfort. This shoe has it all. It's just the midsole that's the drawback. Moving on to the NOVABLAST, and the two things that I mentioned about the Rincon. So this is a 10mm heel to toe drop, which the Rincon was 5, and the weight in this shoe is around about, I think it was about 13 and a bit ounces, 347 grams, somewhere around that region. Excuse me. So you can tell straight away that the main difference in this shoe is the weight. That's literally, for me, one of the only main differences between this shoe. This shoe, like the Rincon, for me this year has done absolutely everything. I've taken this thing from 400-meter repeats all the way up to 20-mile long runs, and let me tell you, this shoe has not let me down once. Let me go through the pros and the cons and where I think it could maybe shed some weight and become a little bit more of a competitor with the Rincon in terms of weight. That's the only thing that I wanted to compete with the Rincon, because it does everything else really, really well. The heel counter area, again, just like the Rincon, perfect amount of padding. It's not too thick, not too thin, just enough to have that perfect comfort. Again, tongue, not like a normal Asics tongue, relatively thin, but not too thin. The upper is where they could shed some weight. We've got kind of like this dual layer mesh thing going on here. We've got a top layer with a lot of thick holes in there, and then underneath we have a finer layer, very stretchy, very wide toe box. But there they could shave a little bit of weight in terms of the upper material, in my opinion. The stack height in this thing, I can't remember the stack height off the top of my head, but I think the Flight Foam Blast in this shoe does contribute to some of the weight. I've got to be honest with you though, I wouldn't want them to change it for the world. This shoe is perfect in every single way. There's just literally, I know I'm comparing to a Rincon, which is super, super light, and I love a lightweight shoe, but this thing, in my opinion, does not feel the weight that it feels. But where do I think it could shave some weight? As I said, so a bit off the upper, a little bit off the midsole, just literally a mil or two, nothing else. Like, I like the stack height. It is a beautiful stack height, and this doesn't have a meta rocker design, but for me the 10mm drop gives me a very similar feeling to the Rincon, that feeling that I'm always wanting to take that next step. Obviously with the Hoka and the meta rocker, you feel like you're standing on the edge of a step, very similar to a lot of the racing shoes I'm testing at the moment. This thing kind of does the same. It doesn't quite have that aggressive toe off feeling, but due to the stack height, you do always feel like you're planting and ready to move again, because your foot is at that 10mm sort of drop angle, whereas a more flatter zero drop ultra or 4mm drop Kinvara 11, you don't quite have that same feeling. Less said about the Kinvara 11, the better. So overall with this shoe, pros and the cons, I have no cons for it. I have no cons for this shoe. The pros is everything about it. Just the whole construction of this shoe is absolutely magic. So as you just heard then, I have absolutely nothing bad to say about the NOVABLAST as it stands, and I had sadly one con to say about the Rincon, which was the duration of the midsole, which means straight off the bat I'm going to say that the NOVABLAST for me edges this battle. However, and this is a big however, if somehow the NOVABLAST could be translated into the weight of this shoe, then I don't think there would be any competition for any other shoe company out there. I think it would just be an absolute winning combination. I think what Hoka have here is an absolute gem of a shoe. The version 2 that's coming out is barely changed whatsoever. It's the same EVA midsole. The only difference in the shoe is literally the upper material is slightly different, and I think it's added a couple of grams. That's it. And as far as I'm concerned, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. As I said, the 180 miles I got in this shoe were absolute bliss, and I cannot wait to get my hands on the version 2. It is a shame the durability of the midsole. If it could just get to 300 miles, it would just be that little bit better. And then in my opinion, we've got a real battle on our hands. But the fact that I've taken this thing over 200 miles and it feels absolutely no different to this thing means that the NOVABLAST has to edge this battle. But as I said, you imagine the weight in this thing and everything about this thing, you have a super shoe right there. So there we go. Those are my thoughts on the Hoka One One Rincon compared to the Asics NOVABLAST. I'd love to hear what you guys think. It's a very close call with those two shoes, considering they're both top of the class for me last year and this year. here, there's very little in it. If Hoka could just sort out the longevity of that midsole, then it would be a much closer battle, and who knows, the Rincon could have edged it. But I cannot wait to get my hands on the Rincon version 2. Let me know if you guys are running the Rincon or the Novablast, which one you prefer, what you like to use them for. For me, the Rincon, certainly the only difference for me in terms of how I would use them is the Rincon would edge it for racing. Other than that, the Novablast would get it for everything else, all the training runs, despite the fact that it would be very close, and it's very hard for me to say I would give it to the Novablast. But racing, Rincon any day. What a lightweight, super shoe there. Let me know in the comments below how you've used the shoe, and if you enjoyed the video, as always guys, make sure you give it a like, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel for weekly running content, and as always, I will see you on the next one. Until then.